Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer, and today I'm bringing you a review and indie highlight of the new isometric narrative game, Rue Valley. It's about a man trapped in a 47-minute time loop who is struggling with his own mental troubles while trying to break free. It releases today on November 11th. It was developed by Emotion Spark Studio and published by Owlcat Games. The devs are new on the scene, but you may already know Owlcat Games from their Pathfinder games or Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. I'm able to bring you this review on the day because I received a key from Owlcat Games. I was going to play and review Rue Valley regardless because I'm a huge fan of Disco Elysium and any game focused on narrative and characters in a similar way, but a big thank you to Owlcat Games for allowing me to play it early so that I didn't have to rush through the game's story to post a review in the first days. Before we get into the review, I'll take a moment to say a special thank you to my members. I appreciate all of you so much, and your support allows me to keep going. Joining as a member would help the channel a lot, but of course only do so if you want to and if you can afford it. I'm always grateful, even if you just like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment. Back to the review. First, let's talk about what Rue Valley is and isn't, what you can expect from it. While a lot of people, myself included, have called this a disco-like, referring to its similarities to the narrative CRPG Disco Elysium, it's not quite the same thing. I want you to know what you're getting into so that you don't have certain expectations that don't get met. Rue Valley is a disco-like in the sense that it focuses on the character's mental and emotional journey, on self-discovery, while you're also uncovering things about the people and place around you. However, other than allowing you to choose your character's personality in 3 dimensions, there isn't an RPG progression, no level-ups, no skills, nor gear that gives bonuses or penalties to skills. You do have status effects that affect your character's personality temporarily, and there are skill checks, in a way, which gauge where a certain dimension of your personality is at, like for example how introverted or extroverted your character is. And while you have freedom in exploring areas and interacting with characters and objects, this is more of a set narrative experience that changes in flavor, not so much in the end result. So you may only play this once, maybe twice, before you feel like you got everything out of it. Personally, I think that narrative and emotional experience has been 100% worth it, but if you're expecting the kind of RPG quality of Disco Elysium from this, it may not be for you. Getting into the review proper, let's talk about the story. I will be keeping the spoilers to an absolute minimum, since of course the story is the main point of the game. The footage I'm using is from the first couple of hours of the game, nothing further, though of course there may be some contextual spoilers from there, so if you want to avoid spoilers entirely, just listen to the review instead of watching the footage. You play as Eugene Harrow, who after an incident was sent to mandated therapy in Rue Valley, an isolated place in the middle of the desert. You're supposed to work with Dr. Gideon Fink to resolve Harrow's issues, but just after the first therapy session, Harrow gets stuck in a 47-minute time loop that ends with the sky turning golden in some kind of fiery explosion. You find out fairly early that one of the characters, a mysterious man in a pickup truck, disappears from the time loop. In order to figure out what's causing the time loop and how to break it, you need to observe what happens at which moment, where people go, what they do, talk to them to find out more about them, as well as the mysterious Coral Destiny Corporation, which came to the valley some years ago. Everything ends up being connected in a really interesting way that made me want to keep going to see what was next, even when the time loop started feeling frustrating and inescapable. That's one thing I'll say as both a positive and a negative. Rue Valley does an amazing job at making you feel what it's like to be stuck in a time loop. Part of this effect is due to them choosing to make it such a short time loop, where you barely feel like you're living before it's all snatched away from you and you have to start over. For me, it was mostly a positive thing, because the main reason I love stories is because they make me feel things I otherwise wouldn't be able to experience. But this is also a potential negative, because you may not be as willing to go through the repetition and feel this frustration building inside of you when you're interacting with a video game. Maybe you'll get bored instead, or annoyed, and won't want to keep going. It's entirely possible, because even I had such a moment where I almost rage quit out of sheer frustration. The game kept telling me I had to do a few actions repeatedly, loop after loop, and it was framed in a way that seemed like the main character Harrow was enjoying these actions, but I just couldn't feel it. I only felt the repetition, felt like I was stuck in a time loop like it was a prison. I'm still not sure what was the intended effect of that portion of the game. Was it actually meant to feel good to do those repeated actions, or was it meant to feel like you're just deluding yourself into accepting the place you're stuck in, no longer trying to get better? I genuinely have no idea what I was meant to feel during those few minutes, but those minutes felt longer than the entire rest of the game. I played the entire game in 2 days, barely taking any breaks because I was absolutely enraptured by the situation, the mystery, the people, and Harrow's issues, but those few minutes almost ruined the entire experience for me. Am I glad that I stuck with it and got back to doing those actions the game asked me to do after I rebelled and did something completely different for 2 loops? Yes, because I got to resolve the mystery and see the true ending. But I am still frustrated with that part of the story, so that's why I wanted to warn you it exists. Go through it, it's not as long as you think, only a few minutes of it, because it's worth it. But be prepared to be frustrated here and there by the nature of the narrative. It is a time loop, after all. But overall, the story hooked me. I loved interacting with all the characters and finding out all the weird things about them and about Rue Valley. I also like the different way you, as Harrow, can interact with people and situations based on the personality you define at the start. Yes, certain elements of your outlook or behavior can be altered a little bit by status effects, but these special interactions will be mostly based on Harrow's core personality. And oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to add here. Your character's name is Harrow, and the doctor's name is Gideon. Are there any The Locked Tomb fans among the writers at Emotion Spark Studio? Because I found it very interesting that these 2 names, which are not used very often in media, and certainly not together, found their way into Rue Valley for the main character and the one NPC he interacts with the most. Just a little fun observation. I have no idea if it was intentional or not, but I like to imagine it was, for fanfiction writing purposes. Anyway, moving on to the gameplay. As I said previously when I was explaining what this game is and isn't, you shouldn't expect a full RPG experience out of this. You have a little inventory of items you can obtain, yes, but I wouldn't call it gear. You can customize your character at the beginning of the game and occasionally alter his stats, aka personality dimensions, through doing certain things, sometimes on purpose. But mostly, Harrow is who he is. The items are only used sometimes for special interactions. The game will proceed in one way other than a few minor differences based on the options you have available based on your personality. As you can tell, the story is the main draw of the game, and the gameplay is there to immerse you into the role of Harrow and his situation. I think it works, mostly, as there is enough to do to keep things interesting. But there is one thing I found annoying, which is that sometimes you end up only having a few minutes left of the loop and nothing relevant to do. And in order to end the loop, you need to interact with your phone to play a game until it ends, read a book if you have it in your inventory, or potentially another object if you're in a specific area. Or you could also click to travel towards another area, even though you know you won't make it until the loop ends. I just wish there was a button in the UI somewhere next to your portrait that let you wait until the loop ends without Harrow doing something. But more importantly, without you, the player, having to click a bunch of buttons and sit through the same animation of your character doing that specific action. It felt very tedious to do this, and I was in the situation of having nothing to do in the last few minutes of the loop pretty often. So I'd really appreciate if the devs added this option of ending the loop as a quality of life improvement for the player. I don't think this would take away from the overall feeling of being stuck in a time loop. It would just make things a bit more comfortable since you don't have to click multiple things just for your character to wait a few minutes. Moving on to visuals and sound. I really love the art style of this game. It looks so good. That comic book style combined with a slight glitchy feeling, as there's this jittery effect, which you can tone down or even turn off completely if it bothers your eyes, by the way. The characters are all interesting to look at, the different locations are beautiful, and overall the visuals fit the game perfectly. The only negative thing I'll say about the way the game looks is that the default UI size is too small, and that makes the text too small and hard to read. Thankfully, there's an option in the gameplay settings to increase the UI scale, and I highly recommend doing so. For me, at least, on a 180p smallish monitor, it would have strained my eyes to read the text at the default size. As for the sound, the voice acting is very well done, though the game doesn't have full voice acting. The NPCs don't always have a voice line playing when they say things, and unlike in Disco Elysium where you have your inner voice narrated, this doesn't happen in Rue Valley, other than a couple of exceptions which felt really nice, and I wish we had that for the full game. The music and sound effects all sound very good too, and honestly I wanted even more music. There was a really beautiful song that played once during a special interaction when you can play the piano at the bar, and I found myself wanting to go and do that again just to hear the song, but unfortunately I couldn't. So I'd love to have the option to play that song again because it was really nice and soothing. Maybe this is just my background in playing piano, rearing its head, but yeah, I would have loved the option to waste time, as it were, in the loop by playing the piano at the bar whenever. Moving on to performance, the game ran perfectly fine for me. No crashes, no freezing. I didn't get stuck during any quest or action or anything that would require for me to quit and reopen the game. One thing I noticed was that maybe there were a couple of transition or animation effects missing. The most egregious example of this was towards the end of the game, where the character is supposed to see something special happening, but I only saw a black screen during that time, when I'm pretty sure there was supposed to be some kind of animated effect. I also noticed once that one of the status effects said I wasn't able to run, but I could make my character run just fine. I expect that these minor bugs are going to be addressed pretty quickly by the devs, but I figured I'd mention them anyway. In terms of performance, I'm honestly very easy to please. I just need the game to not bug out on quests and not freeze or crash too much. And so I was very happy with the quality of Rue Valley, especially considering I played a pre-release version, and it's quite likely the game was patched a bit more during this time, so the release version might be even better. Before we move on to conclusions, we need to talk about the price. I saw on Rue Valley's Steam page that at release it's going to cost $29.99, which I think might be too expensive for quite a lot of people. Would I have personally bought this on release at this price? Very likely yes, but that's only because I really love time loop stories. If this had been about another subject I didn't care about as much, I would have just waited for a sale that brought this down to $15, $20. So unless you love time loop narratives as much as I do, which is very unlikely, I will recommend that you wait for a sale because you're only getting 10 to 15 hours, maybe 20 hours at maximum if you want to do 2 long playthroughs where you don't skip through dialogues you've already read and such. In my opinion, $30 is a bit much for that. I remember I bought Disco Elysium when the Final Cut version came out, and it was on sale at that time for about $20-ish, maybe $25. That felt like a good price for Disco Elysium, but in total I've played and replayed that game a lot. I have 125 hours in it. So since Rue Valley doesn't have that kind of replayability due to lacking multiple endings and such, yeah, I don't know why they chose this price for it. I think it's absolutely a game worth playing if you enjoy strong narratives, but, wait for a sale if it's too expensive for you right now. In conclusion, I greatly enjoyed my time with Rue Valley, and the best part was that it actually made me feel what it would be like to be stuck in a time loop, how difficult that would be to cope with, how it would erode away at your motivation and desire to live, how it could end up feeling inescapable. The time loop is meant to be a symbol for certain mental health issues like depression and other more dangerous issues as well, some of which are touched upon in the game as you get to occasionally delve into Harrow's past and what brought him to Rue Valley to begin with, and how he feels about himself and his life. Rue Valley is one of those games that I feel like saying is not for everyone. There's no such thing as a game for everyone, of course, but you've heard all the potential negatives and warnings that I've given throughout this review, despite me personally loving the game. As a more experimental and niche game dealing with certain themes that a smaller group of people is interested in, you're going to likely hear this a lot about Rue Valley. Don't take it to mean that the game is bad by any means, just that it's very particular, and that will appeal to a very specific group of people. If you're not part of that group, it's absolutely fine to say it's not for you, even if you enjoyed Disco Elysium and are looking forward to various disco-likes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review/indie highlight for Rue Valley, and hopefully this has helped you figure out if you're interested in getting it for yourself. If you enjoyed this, stick around for future guides, reviews, and discussion videos I plan to make about games I care about, primarily RPGs. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, or maybe become a channel member. Everything helps. This has been B-Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.